Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel, the #1 YouTube channel for you to level up your communication skills, learn the art of public speaking, social skills, and personal branding to take your message to the world. For today's episode, we're entering the world of public speaking, and I'm going to be sharing the truth about choking a speech. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to hit subscribe right on below for 3 weekly videos on how to become a better communicator. Have you ever watched that movie 8 Mile? You know, the Eminem movie? That's one of my favorite movies from any rappers out there because not only do I love Eminem's music, I also found out that he could act. He wasn't too bad in that movie. I was really surprised when, in the beginning stages of the movie, when he got called on stage. One of the greatest rappers of all time, getting called on stage, you would think that he was going to kill it, right? But that wasn't the case. He got called on stage as B-Rabbit, and he ended up choking away the freestyle battle. It was very disappointing to see, but it set the tone for the rest of the movie. How is it that Eminem ever choked in his career? Is that even possible? Surprisingly, yes. Choking not only happens in battle rap, but it also happens in the public speaking world. If you don't understand what choking means, it pretty much means that you got very nervous and you didn't perform up to your standards. It happens in sports very often as well. Have you ever had that one moment when you wanted to bet all your money on a particular sports team because you thought they're gonna win it? It's a sure done deal. And they ended up losing? It happens a lot in sports. That's why I don't gamble in sports at all, because you never know when something can happen like that. And choking, unfortunately, is a concern in the public speaking world, because just imagine you are someone that has prepared, has practiced, and as you get called on stage, when you're about to start your speech, you just get a brain fart. You don't remember anything. You forget the whole thing. That right there is probably one of the loops that you're constantly having as you're replaying your speech anxiety. Very common issue to have. And in this video, I want to clarify some things about the dreaded choke job, because when we think about it, it seems very daunting. It seems as though it's going to haunt us. However, if it does happen, how should you react next? Many of you guys are discovering this video in different stages of your life. Maybe you are worried about choking, maybe you've already choked, or maybe you're just scared about starting public speaking at all because who knows, you may embarrass yourself. Whichever boat you fall into, this video is going to address all of that. So make sure you stay tuned and listen, because I'm going to take a very different stance on the choke job. I'm going to say that, you know what, just pay attention. When I first started my public speaking journey via Toastmasters, I ended up opening in a very negative light. I got called on stage, to my surprise, for Toastmasters Table Topics, which is the impromptu speech section for the club. And I had to talk about maracas, something very random. Now, mind you, I'm very nervous as it is, and I have no time to prepare for the speech. What do you think happened? I ended up getting in the middle of the stage and I'm just like, and I didn't say a single word. To make it more embarrassing, there were a lot of people in the audience that I personally knew. And I could see that they were making fun of me, they were cracking jokes. And after the meeting was done, a lot of people came up to me that I was pretty cool with, and they were like, they were making fun of me. After that moment, I decided that public speaking wasn't my thing, and I decided that I was going to quit. I spent the next few months just avoiding the whole public speaking game. I felt as though it wasn't for me. But you know how emotions are. When you try to run away from them, they chase you. When you try to run faster, they chase faster. And that was the case for me. I was trying to stay away from public speaking. However, public speaking kept calling my name. As the next few months passed on by, I finally came to the conclusion that I needed to go back to Toastmasters. whether I wanted to or not, because this feeling wasn't going to be going away anytime soon. Eventually, I ended up building up the courage to go back to Toastmasters. And what I realized was, look, Armani, you just gotta say one word, maybe two. And if you're feeling very ambitious, you can say 3 words and you'll be better than you were the first time around. That was the attitude that I had. And this time, when the table topics master asked for a volunteer, my arm sprang on up and I decided that I had to deal with this fear. I ended up getting called on stage and I ended up saying, let's say, more than 3 words. And overall, this set the tone for the rest of my public speaking journey. Now, here's where I started to realize. Eventually, once I joined the Toastmasters Club, I was very shocked to realize that there were a lot of people, a lot of veteran members who were very polished speakers at this stage in their journey that began their Toastmasters journey as well via a choke job. One particular person that stood out was this older guy named Joe. And Joe was in Toastmasters for a very, very long period of time. He was an entrepreneur and he served as mentors for up and coming members. And he was like, yo, Armani, so you ended up choking as well, right? I was like, yeah, man, I was so embarrassed. And Joe's like, yo, I ended up choking as well. I was like, you did? You're so good at speaking though. He's like, why do you think I got good in the first place? It's because I was so embarrassed by my choke job in front of so many close people that I knew that after that point, I realized, yo, champ, you gotta work hard. You gotta bounce back from this moment. And I was like to Joe, wait, that happened to you? That happened to me as well. And just knowing that there was another person in this Toastmasters Club that had virtually the same exact experience that I went through, my mind was blown. And after that moment, I started to take Toastmasters very seriously. I eventually ended up being a mentor myself. I started to mentor new Toastmasters members. I ended up also serving as a recruitment chair where I would get the Toastmasters message out there. And eventually, I also served as the external vice president for the club. So I would throw different events for my particular chapter. This allowed me to have Toastmasters experience from multiple different angles. And as I had these different angles, I was also able to build more speech experience. I was able to see how different people had problems as well. And one thing that I saw, surprisingly, and not so surprisingly by the way, was other people who were choking their first speech. And here's a pattern that I noticed. Let's say there's a guy named Johnny. This is Johnny's first time checking out Toastmasters, and he doesn't know what to expect. Well, for that particular meeting, the table topics master is very slick, and he wants to call on the guests. This particular table topics master calls on Johnny. Johnny is terrified. He gets called on stage, and he's like, ends up choking, and he gets back to his seat. Now, here's the same pattern that I noticed for most people that choke. What they do is their body language changes. They feel as though the walls are closing in on them. They're like, that's virtually what happens. And the rest of the members in Toastmasters, they're just going about their day-to-day business. The meeting still goes on and everyone is just flowing while Johnny thinks everyone else in the meeting is thinking about him. It's funny, especially when you see certain patterns happening in multiple different clubs. You realize that the choke job happens, but it doesn't just happen and stop. It happens and then we start processing it, and that's where the tough parts begin. To start off, one of the things that you want to ask yourself is, have you ever seen someone slip and fall? Like right in front of you, they're walking, they're trying to walk with all the swag, and then they just slip, maybe on a puddle of water, or maybe they misstep and they fall on their ass. When this happens, what do you think is going on in that particular person's mind? That person is embarrassed. They're looking around and they see all these people looking at them, and they're like, oh no, man, what just happened? And a good Samaritan comes and tries to help this person up. And this person's like, no, I don't need help getting up. And they get up themselves. And who knows, for the rest of the day, they may be feeling very, very embarrassed, thinking, man, normally I'm such a cool guy. I can't believe I just fell in front of all those people. It's so embarrassing. Everyone that saw me is probably still thinking about me. Now for you, you probably looked at this person, had a good laugh, and you went about your day, right? I mean, it wasn't anything more serious than that. You thinking that this other individual is processing that you're still thinking about him is laughable in your eyes, isn't it? So when I see a lot of these people choke and they think that we're going to be thinking about them for the rest of the day, who knows, for the rest of the week, it becomes laughable. And when you start understanding this, you start making a little bit of fun of the choke job. Sometimes you have to make fun of very tough times or very nervous moments to bring humor into it. When you bring humor into a very dark situation, you bring light into it. And when you bring light into this situation, you think, all right, if it does happen to me, it's not that bad. It's not the end of the world. It's sort of like that guy who slips. If he just has a good laugh and he's like, haha, this is pretty funny. These people are going to forget about it eventually. And next time, I'll probably see a puddle of water in front of me. This guy ended up learning something. And it's the same thing with the choke job. It was very good that I ended up having a choke job for my first ever speech. And the reason that it was good was because it gave me perspective. I was able to realize that the thing that holds a lot of people back from ever starting, I ended up having the very beginning. And once I had it in the very beginning, I was like, all right, this is the worst that it's going to get. And from there, I was able to start my public speaking journey. Although it took a few months, I was able to start from there. It's sort of like the person that's driving a bicycle and say they do figure it out. A part of them is always wondering, well, what if I fall? What if I fall? What if I fall? Hey guys, how are you doing? And they're riding their bike and a part of them is still thinking, well, what if I fall? What if I fall? What if I fall? And one day they actually do end up falling. Once they fall, they're like, oh no, my worst thing just came true. Well, yeah, it came true. And then they have their aha moment. All right, that's it. Then they get back on their bike and they start riding. It's the same exact thing with public speaking. Even if you do choke, hypothetically, you want to understand that other people aren't going to be thinking about you for who knows how long. Well, what if they record my speech? Well, then they record their speech, record your speech as well, and what they'll do is they'll still move on with their life, as you should. Now, this isn't me endorsing that you should go on stage, not say anything, and be like, well, Armani said I could choke. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you took all the precautions and you do end up choking, don't be too hard on yourself because your journey isn't over. Have an abundance mindset towards public speaking because then after this, if you keep on going, this dark moment, this loss turns into a lesson. Now, with that being said, what should you do leading up to your speech? You should be practicing. For me, in this case, I didn't have the ability to practice too much because I didn't have much data for public speaking at that time. I didn't understand what table topics was in the first place. So this particular speech, I didn't have much preparation for. However, when I had this experience, I had more data. I knew that, all right, next time, who knows, you may be given a topic like maraca, something random. So practice. How am I going to practice? Well, the way that I was going to practice was I was just going to get random topics and I was going to create speeches around that. So I went on google.com, I typed in free topic generator, something like that. And there was this tool that came out that would just spit out random topics at you. So I would get those random topics and I would make a little story about it. So the next time that I went in front of Toastmasters, I was prepared. I felt more ready for that table topics portion. For you, you want to ask yourself, all right, well, what's my speech about? If it's not an impromptu speech, then I can actually prepare it, I could practice it, I could have fun with it. I normally give the 5x rule, which is you want to get through your speech 5 times perfectly before saying that you've practiced enough. And when I say you want to get through it 5 times perfectly, what I mean is that you got to get through the concepts perfectly. You don't have to say every word verbatim, word for word, because then you come off as robotic. Instead, be able to go through the high level points of your speech 5 times to perfection. Anytime that you mess up, you got to start back over. As you keep doing this 5 times to perfection, the speech becomes ingrained in your subconscious mind. And when the speech becomes ingrained in your subconscious mind, now what you can do is you can practice your body language more. But if you do this 5x rule, you shouldn't worry too much because you put in as much work as you could put in. The day or two before the speech, just relax, just chill, associate good feelings with the speech. And the day of your speech, you know that you've practiced as hard as you can, you've put in the work, you've put in the reps, so you'll feel more confident. And if it is a random situation where you end up forgetting for some reason, and this is your first time happening, then I recommend, trying your best to just pause, gather your thoughts, and try to formulate something. If you still can't, then take the L and do better next time. Here's the thing. A lot of people can't tell when you're choking a speech. So learning the art of thinking on your feet is a mega key. I have videos on how to think on your feet, but the one thing that I can just give you a quick summary on is do what I did. Use that little lesson that I learned and start applying it in your life. Start learning the art of thinking on your feet. Go on Google, type in something like free topic generator, whatever that is, and build the practice for telling stories about whatever. It doesn't matter. It could be maraca, it could be a hot dog, it could be a lamp. Whatever is thrown your way, get in the habit of telling stories about it. So not only did you practice, but say you did practice, you put in all your reps, and you're still messing up on the big speech day, you aren't that worried because you practiced another part, a deeper dimension that speakers sometimes aren't even aware of, and that's thinking on feet skills. So you become a multi-dimensional weapon. Now with that being said, I just want to wrap up by you understanding one main thing. The whole public speaking game, this is you learning on the fly. This is you taking a strong look in the mirror and realizing that you're going to have some weaknesses, you're going to have some strengths, and you're going to have to learn to assimilate these together in order to become a great public speaker. There's no such thing as the perfect public speaker out there. The people that you think are great, they were once not great. They had to put in a lot of reps in order to keep figuring out, all right, this works, these all suck out, and they keep polishing it up. So if you are someone that ends up choking, don't be too hard on yourself. Understand that a lot of people, they ended up choking. They ended up getting booed. Their, who knows, friends, family probably laughed at them, whatever the case is, but they kept on going. Choke jobs will only hold you back if you start letting it be a narrative for you. You don't want that to be the case. You want to be known as a person who keeps winning yourself over because you're battle tested. You're always showing up. You're always putting in the work. With that being said, learn to embrace choke jobs if it does happen to you, and to avoid it happening to you, practice your speech 5 times to perfection, and to add more depth, learn the art of thinking on your feet. Get random topics and freestyle stories from that, and you'll become bulletproof. You'll become a much better speaker than the masses. Not sure that you should be comparing yourself in the first place, but overall, you understand that you are eventually becoming your own barometer. Now, with that being said, make sure you drop a like if today's episode helped you, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Armani Talks YouTube channel.